Y'all can be seated. So today we hear the gospel of the Beatitudes, which is Jesus' fundamental teaching. You know, like if you push God in the middle, it says, blessed are the poor in spirit. If you're like not all rich in yourself, but like filled with God and care for the other. He teaches us that blessed are the meek. What does he mean by that? Like, should you be this like little quiet type? No, meek is somebody who lets their boss be their boss when it's the right time. And Jesus is saying, let me be your boss and everything else. And sometimes he's going to ask us to be fierce, not shy or retiring. But right before this gospel, Jesus is walking along the beach and he passes two brothers who are fishing. They're cleaning their nets. Fishing is a hard job, especially in those days. You go out and take the nets. It's a good job. These guys, their families had probably been doing it for generations that nobody could remember. And Jesus says, drop your nets and come follow me. And they do it. Pretty astounding. Imagine if you were on the Cape in some break in college and you're hanging out on the beach and some dude comes up to you and says, hey, drop your towel and come grab your towel and come follow me. Now you're going to help me gather people for the kingdom. You'd be like, sorry. I think that would be, if you didn't, why would you do it? Wait a second. What if you were a hockey player, and Jim Montgomery, the coach of the Bruins, came up to you and said, hey, leave this and come follow me and I will make you a star hockey player. You will lead, like this guy. Someday you'll lead the Bruins into victory someday. You might be like picturing yourself kissing the big Stanley Cup trophy and be like, okay, I'll follow you. That sounds like a good deal. Or what if you were pre-med in college and all of a sudden you meet the head of Harvard Medical School and he says, quit what you're doing and come to Harvard and I will make you an amazing doctor. You'd probably do it, right? You'd probably say, wait a second, this is the fulfillment of what I really, really want. So how is it that when Jesus is calling them that they do it? What are we not able immediately to pick up in the gospel as we hear it that makes it sound kind of weird as opposed to making it sound like the most amazing opportunity that they could have ever? Now, it did turn out to be an amazing opportunity. St. Peter was a simple fisherman. Now he's got one of the biggest churches in the world in honor of him. St. Andrew, they named a golf course after him in Scotland. How good is that? And so it is that these guys went on to fulfill who they were meant to be. I think the problem is that in order for us to really understand this gospel, we have to know Jesus. So when I was out of college and I taught school for a couple of years, I had this inkling in my heart that maybe I was called to be a priest. So I just said, I've got to try it out. I've got to go and figure it out what God wants me to do. And if I go in for a year it wasn't what I'm meant to be, then that was as good of an answer as if I stayed for the rest of my life, which clearly I did. But what I understand now, which I didn't understand then, is just what Jesus was asking me to do. And that is to be in a relationship with him. Such a relationship that he's asking me to help other people be in relationship with Jesus. When we read the Bible, we're not just reading something that happened 2,000 years ago. Jesus is alive. He rose from the dead. His Spirit is within us and he awakens in us. And it means that we can actually have a relationship with Jesus. When we look at the crucifix, that's how Jesus loved us on the cross 2,000 years ago. Now we want to know Jesus, we look at him in the Eucharist. We realize he's alive in the sacraments. And the fact is that how do you do just this? How do you hear what God wants you to do and who he wants you to be? It's called prayer. It's called prayer. That means just being quiet and talking to God, telling what's on your heart. I get up every day and I pray for an hour before I start my day. I spend an hour of quiet prayer, reading, doing all in front of Jesus because I'm lucky I have a chapel in my house. But I do that so that I am in constant contact with Jesus himself, so that I can give people the message that he needs them to hear. And when I am praying, I start noticing him all over the place. I start seeing his winks, his hints, where he said this, where somebody said something to me. I'm like, whoa, that's from the Lord to me. I start hearing things and I start realizing, oh, he's talking to me all the time. The less, if I do get lazy on prayer, if I'm busy, which I try not to ever be too busy, but if you're on vacation, you're running around, I stop noticing it. That's what the power of prayer is opening yourself to God's communication to you. Now, those older students who are trying to figure out college and then majors and what God wants you to do, how are you going to know it? How are you going to know what you're called to be? Whether you're called to be a priest or a religious, whether you're called to be a doctor, certainly, or a husband or a wife, whether you're called to be a star of some sport, whatever the Lord is calling you to be, you can't know that fully if you're not connected to Jesus. And for those who are watching at home, even you might be on the other end of all life and career, but the Lord's still calling you now to do just what he's asking you to do, to know him so that you can share him, especially with your grandkids. And so it is, my brothers and sisters. Yeah, the call of Jesus is real to each one of us. To some it may be to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be a priest, but to all of us, to be the men and women he's created us to be. And if we do just that, we will know true joy in this life and in the next. So I'm going to say, praise be Jesus Christ, and I want you to say now and forever. Praise be Jesus Christ forever. Shall we stand and profess our faith?